You're listening to the British Baseball Podcast.
There's this one. It's called The Glory of Their Times.
Yeah.
Glory of Their Times, okay? This guy, Larry Ritter, when interviewed all these old ball players, and it was just, and given what you like to do, this was literally just a collection of interviews of ball players recalling things, kind of like we're doing right now. So it's a really, really, really cool book. I highly recommend it. The other one is the Satchel Paige autobiography.
I bet that's a fantastic
Maybe
read.
I'll Pitch Forever. And he's quite inspirational in that because at the time he was in his mid 50s when he wrote the book and was still pitching professionally. So I was like, if he's going to keep going, maybe I can just keep going.
Are you still playing
here
now?
I am. I'm 41. I've never taken a summer off outside of COVID pitching. Still pitching.
Nice.
Every Sunday. So anyway, but those are my two favorite baseball books. So
I picked up a really good one by Stacey May Fowles called Baseball Life Advice. It's all about her and being a Toronto Blue Jays fan and the struggles of being a female baseball fan as well. And also like how baseball just gave her so much joy when things weren't so good. That was a really good read, really interesting. And again, like we were just talking about before, Josh Chetwynd's Baseball in Europe book has been really good for research, for doing a lot of this stuff.
Sure.
And a lot of collection as well. Blokes is Someone by Harvey Soccer, Moneyball, Baseball for Dummies, which I just think is really good to have up there because it looks funny. Conflict, Ryan Ferguson, The Outstanding Youth Coach by Cody Kane. And this is Stealing Home, Rookie Season. That's a comic book. And Gary Bedingfield's book and the old-timer stuff. So a lot of this is either people that have appeared on this show that I tried to support or and Annie Brown's calendar. Behind my other autobiographies. I do like autobiographies. I find it, I had a head injury in 2014, so like reading is quite difficult. And I seem to have lost that. It's something I never really realized before until I started. During you're reading like a storybook, and you can picture the stuff in your head, like the scenes and stuff. I've lost that. I find it really hard to picture things when I'm reading it.
Got it.
It's crazy. So autobiographies are just easy for me to read. So again, that Satchel Paige one sounds good because it's quite interesting.
Well, let me tell you a little bit more about the Satchel Paige autobiography, just to give you a couple little tidbits there to whet your appetite for that.
Yes, please.
The guy was just a tremendous, tremendous pitcher. So says everybody that ever watched him pitch. And he did it for so long. And he pitched every day. Not every 4 days or every 5 days. Every day for years. Complete games. Anyway, really fun, really interesting insights. Some of it is a little intense, as you might imagine, given the timing of it all. But I just think he's very inspirational in his attitude and the way he was able to continue pitching and the quality of his pitching and his philosophy on pitching and what to look for. There's a lot of good nuggets in there.
Cool. Was Satchel Paige one of your sporting heroes and you're being a pitcher yourself as long as a DH?
He was, but mostly, I would say when I was a kid, the pitching hero for me was Pedro Martinez.
Yeah.
I grew up in Boston as a Red Sox fan. And when Pedro came over, I was a sophomore in high school, just really getting going with my pitching. And he was extremely inspirational in terms of his attitude, his pitches, his mix sequences. Everything he did, I tried to model myself after while I was in high school. And actually, I had the great privilege of being able to go to the Pedro Martinez Hall of Fame induction in 2015.
Oh, wow.
With my dad and my brother and my son, who was only 2.5 at the time. And that was awesome. Saw the whole Martinez family there. I didn't see Pedro, but I saw his uncle and his brother Ramon and other families. There was a whole group inside the museum speaking Spanish with them for some time. And it was just excellent. And so I really enjoyed that Hall of Fame induction getting to see him there. He also has a great autobiography as well. The Pedro Martinez autobiography that came out was excellent.
Yeah.
He's a guy I liked. And I'd go to Fenway to watch him play. I was also a vendor at Fenway Park. So I would go selling sodas and other things up and down the aisles. And so I got to go to the games to watch BP, probably go to about 60 or 70 games a year, watch BP. And then also you'd see pitchers walking around the tunnels and players just doing things. I also watched all the running programs of all the different pitchers.
Yeah.
So I really liked Derek Lowe's running program in particular, because I tried to pitch, even though I liked Pedro, I also wasn't throwing 95, you know. And Derek Lowe was someone who was like, okay, he's in the upper 80s with movement. That's kind of more like me. Maybe I can be more like that, right? So I was just sort of watching what Derek Lowe was doing. And during BP, because we would get our assignments to see where we were going to go sell things. So I did that for 3 summers. And good workout, 3 or 4 miles up and down steps with a soda bin that was like 40 pounds. So it was good.
They got legs like an ox.
And I got to watch a lot of great hitters hit. I remember Juan Gonzalez for the Rangers was just tremendous in batting practice.
Yeah.
And Canseco, when he played for the Red Sox, was clearing the light poles consistently at Fenway Park. So at the time, they didn't have the seats above the monster, but there's that Coke bottle up there.
Yeah.
And then above the Coke bottle were the lights. And he was putting it over the lights, one after the next, after the next. That was pretty spectacular to watch.
That's awesome. So what did you learn and pick up then from having that unrivaled access to the players?
Well, I didn't pick up that much except for the running programs, because I couldn't see, we didn't have access to them, right? They didn't want us to go up and talk to them. We were kind of off in our own area. There was, maybe 50 or 80 of us up in the bleachers watching BP every day. We had a little section that we were kind of supposed to stay in. But I did enjoy watching the routines, and it seemed like the players were having fun during BP. Like I saw a lot of pitchers go out shagging balls, and like seemed like they were having some kind of competitions going on, which I learned later in college, and I got farther along what more of those were. Well, that was pretty enjoyable. I also saw Greg Maddux one day take a ball and throw up against the pad at the Green Monster in left field low. And he would make a spot when he threw the ball, it would hit a little dent in the pad. And then he'd just stay there until he didn't hit the pad. And it was like 15 or 20 balls. He wasn't throwing very hard, but he was hitting that little dot in the pad just over and over and over and over. That was pretty fun to watch.
That's insane. So
I remember watching that and thinking that stood out.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, you may hear some dogs here because my dogs are chasing squirrels in the backyard. So I apologize for that. Let me try and close the door. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that was pretty fun. And then basically you'd stop selling in the 6th or the 7th inning. And then you'd cash out for about a half inning. And then you could go watch the game. So you'd get to watch the last couple innings of the game. And they basically were like, just go sit wherever you want. So I'd usually get a really great seat right behind home plate. And that was when Tom Gordon at the time set the consecutive saves record. That was broken by others since then. I think Gagne broke it. But at the time, Flash Gordon set the record. And I watched him do that. All the ones he did at home, I watched all that. And that was really impressive to watch him do it, because he wasn't that big a guy, but he had that big hammer curveball and that fastball that was just really good combo.
Yeah. Sweet. So with you being able to sit, for anyone that's a Red Sox fan or thinking of going and watching a game, with the access that you've had then to seating, where do you think is the best seat in the house in Fenway?
They're all pretty good because it's such a small stadium. You can't really get that far away. I mean, there's a couple weird ones that are blocked by poles and things like that. So you sort of got to just make sure you didn't get one of those. But other than that, they're pretty great.
Yeah. Nice. Put on the bucket list. I know a few people that have been over and time again. I've never been to the States yet, so it's just a matter of time before we make our way over
Here's
there.
a crazy Fenway story before we move off that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I went back with some family in 2013. Went to a game, caught a game at Fenway. I'm in right field up at the very top of the grandstand where there's like a walk path up there. And I kind of put my hand up like this to just kind of rest my arms. And I just kind of put it up on this I-beam. And as my hand grabs something and I grab it, and it's good, clearly ashes. So I like carefully put it back up there. I was like, okay, let's just take it easy. So it's definitely a place that they're seeing a lot of action, and a lot of people are very into their memories from Fenway, and it goes back generations. I've got great uncles of mine that I talked to about that from the Boston area that told me about seeing different players. Hold on a second. I think my daughter's shoes finally arrived. She's like, did they come? Did they come, Papa? Did they come? Anyway.
Awesome. So how did you get interested in baseball? What are your earliest memories?
Well, I was always interested in baseball as far as I can tell. I always liked it. I liked other sports too, like basketball and tennis and soccer. But I always remember really liking baseball a lot for some reason. So I played it starting when I was 4 or 5 and just never did stop. Ever. Still doing it, right? I mean, I threw 6 innings last week and got 1,200 innings in my men's league, which is since 2011. So that's like 7, 8 innings every Sunday, April through September, the whole time. And so I never really have stopped. So I've always really liked it. And I tell you, the Great Britain program of my baseball memories are some of my fondest memories, and some of the greatest experiences that I've had were as a part of the Great Britain program. I felt really fortunate to be a part of the program, and I totally lucked into it. So I was in college talking with my college roommate about where we were from, what's your background. I had been born in England. My dad was Canadian. My mom's American. He was going to medical school in London. He's an ophthalmologist. And so I was born while he was doing his medical school training in London. And at the time, you didn't have to have a British parent. You just had to be born in England. Yeah. I understand that policy changed pretty soon after I was born, but I made it in there. And that's how I qualified for my British passport. So I didn't get my British passport because I moved to the United States when I was 2.5. After my dad completed his program, moved to the US, and we had been living in various parts of the US since then. I did not get my passport until that sophomore year in college. And I basically just searched it right then and there, Great Britain baseball. And it turned out there was a tryout in the Los Angeles area near where I was going to school in 2 weeks, which was just the greatest luck ever. And so at that tryout, I met a lot of future teammates as well as coaches. People like Alex Malhudis was there. And I think Will was there. I don't know if he was at that exact one, but I think he might have been. I know that Vince was there, Gary was there, and there were other folks. I think Stockman was there. Let's say there were a few others that were there. And what we did is we played against these junior college teams. Yeah. And I pitched well. Now, in one of those games, unfortunately, is when Alex got hurt. I mean, that was just a nightmare to be a part of and see that. I mean, I saw him playing prior to that, and it just was a shame to see all that. But yes, that is when I first got introduced to Great Britain baseball. Really a great group of people. I remember thinking just, wow, what a fun group and great group. And so I was hoping to make the team. I made the team, and our first tournament was 2001 in Bonn, Germany. Yeah. Which was just great. And what an adventure. And I had pitched well in college, but I really didn't get a lot of huge innings for my team, Pomona Pitzer, where I was pitching at the time. I got some innings, but they weren't crucial innings. And so I was an up and comer. I had pitched really well in the summer league that I had went to in Boston as a closer reliever type. And so during that summer wood bat league in Boston, I had really been pitching well. And so coming into the tournament, I had been showing the stats to the coaches, hey, look, you might want to think of me in that way. And so that was sort of my role. And I remember going to the warm-up tournament in Cologne for one of the professional teams out there. That was, no, not Cologne. Let's see, would have been, well, one of those other towns right around there. That was fun. And then in the tournament itself, I came in relief against the Ukraine and pitched 3 innings and struck out a lot of guys and didn't give up anything. And then at the very end of the game, came in to pinch hit for Jeff Freeborn, if you can believe that. They put me in there instead of Freebie. But a lefty had come in, and Vince is like, you know what? You've got the magic today, kid. Get up there and just get a hit. And so I kind of first pitch sawed. Wasn't a great hit. It was like a little soft liner over the second baseman, but Nick Carter's flying around the bases. I can still see him sliding in, all fired up. That was a pretty fun moment.
Yeah.
Right there. Really great. And then another game in that series that I remember very fondly, but also scarily, is the Russia game. And Eddie Delzer, who was just a tremendous veteran pitcher guy to be around as a 20-year-old kid, because this guy had pitched in the College World Series and had been a big-time player. He had a couple of really nice tips for me in terms of how to handle yourself and how to go about things. Anyway, he pitched. He's giving up nothing. He's carving the whole game. And we get into the bottom of the ninth, and he's got bases low, second and third with 2 outs. And Vince looks at me, and I'm warmed up, and he's like, look, if anybody gets on, you're going in the game to get third out. Well, there's a ground ball to Ben Meacham, our third baseman, who makes an error. There's still 2 outs, bases loaded. They haven't won. It's still 2-1. And I'm thinking, well, he said if anyone gets on, but with an error, like, that really wasn't on Eddie, He's like, nope, you're in. Get in there, kid. Go. I'm like, okay, here we go. And got loose. I remember my first pitch, I pulled it badly. And Josh Chetwin made one of the most incredible blocks I've ever seen in terms of if he set up a way for a fastball, and I pull it way over to his arm side, right? Yeah. Where it's coming over here. It's really hard to get over there. And he just did a tremendous job of doing that. And then my next pitch was a ball, kind of gathered myself, got back a couple strikes, threw a slider, soft line drive to right field. Ian Young makes the catch, and we win. So that was pretty cool. I also remember the next day, Vince was like, "You got the magic, get up there and DH." And I faced my friend Peter Pakas from the Czech Republic, who lives in San Diego now, who I see here and there. We're buddies around here. He just totally carved me up. I think I had 4 strikeouts on slider. So it was like, well, that was the end of me hitting, and that was it. I never got the bat back in my hands for GB after that. But that was a fun tournament. I think it was definitely eye-opening to see how good the Netherlands was.
Yeah. Still are.
But in terms of actually seeing it live, right, for the first time.
Yeah.
Seeing like Calvin Maduro up there just smashing Millsy around, and Millsy being like, I don't understand, I'm hitting my spots. I'm like, these guys are like Major League Baseball players, Millsy. They're gonna do that. But that was a really fun tournament. Really enjoyed myself there, and that was the first of many tournaments. At the time, I thought, well, we'll just see how many I can do, and it just kept going. 2003 was spectacular. We got to go to the Netherlands, which a place I wound up playing 3 seasons professionally in their Hoofdklasse, which was really awesome. But this is my first introduction to Dutch culture. We were staying in this nice hotel in Haarlem, which is a beautiful city. And it was just spectacular, really fun, really good group of people. We did pretty well. I think that for given what we had and given the level of talent on the other side, it was definitely, but I remember one of the games pitched against Belgium, another game where Nick Carter scored a very important run. Their head coach of the Belgian national team was also the head coach of ADO, which is a team in the top level in the Netherlands. And so I had been tapped to pitch against Belgium. And so I found out that he was actually the head coach of a Dutch professional team. I was like, hey, I want to come play in the Netherlands. Keep an eye on me, right? And so I pitched okay, gave up some runs early, but then held it down. And then we came back late to win. And that was really exciting because that kept us in the A pool. I remember Nick, when we hit home plate, he was like, A pool, baby, as he hit home plate. which was very, very exciting for all of us, and which was nice. So that was great. And then I thought, okay, I'm going, to the Netherlands to play next summer. So I went to Australia after that. Went to Australia, but I tell you that, going back to Josh Chetwynd for a second, back when I was graduating college in 2003, I was trying to figure out what to do. And Josh was going to go play on this team in Sweden called Oskarshamn. And he's like, hey, if you don't get signed or something else doesn't happen, you want to come over to Sweden? You get your own little cabin, and you can get started, and maybe you can catch on somewhere else, right? The European Championships are in Holland. Maybe you can find someone down there to hook up with. Okay. So I didn't get signed, and his connection to the leadership of that team wound up working out, and they offered me a contract, and I went over there after I graduated from college for that season, which was a great experience. We finished in first place in the regular season. We got knocked out in the playoffs, unfortunately, but that was a fun environment. Interesting playing in Sweden. It was like 7 or 8 out of the 9 players in each lineup were left-handed hitters.
Really?
And so every game is just constantly lefties, which I didn't really mind too much because I had a lot of sink going and then a slider and then a changeup. And so I could kind of throw all those to those guys, particularly the changeup. There weren't a lot of righty hitters over there. And I will say, on that Sweden team, we had a guy that had played AA with the Rockies named Tony Demenchev, who went on to play in the Swedish national team, but he had played AA with the Rockies and was like a really good player. So I was like, wait a minute, we got a former AA guy as our center fielder. This is really going to be fun. And he was very good. So that was a good experience for me. During that tournament, like I said, I met Jan Peter Cohn, who was the auto manager at the time. Went to Australia after that. Went to play in the league down there in Perth for the West Sterling Indians, and had a great season. I mean, had through like 120 innings. The ERA was in the 2s. Really was good. I think I was 5-7 on the year because our team, was kind of middle bottom of the pack. Had some excellent players on that team. I mean, bunch of former pro guys and current pro guys. At the time, our shortstop was with the Braves organization, and our third baseman was in the Padres organization. It was their off season. So it was really high quality baseball there as well. Thought I was going to come play in the Netherlands in 2004. And that didn't work out. And actually, really, it's thanks to Tom Gillespie and Stefan Rapaglia, right? Pags, and their hard work. Once they kind of stepped into the program, we had this workout session down in Florida, and we did bullpens and worked out with the Cleveland's mental health coordinator, which I thought was really great to do in terms of giving some advice on how to get the best out of yourself in that way. And those two guys really lobbied the auto folks that were like, hey, you should sign him this year. I know you didn't sign him last year, sign him this year. And then take a couple other guys too. And so I went over with Gary Tong and James Rutherford as like a package, all 3 of us together. James was an outfielder, and then Gary was also a starting pitcher. And we went over to auto in 2005. And it's because of the British team, really, because I had tried to kind of do it on my own. I kind of got a look. I almost got there, but I didn't quite. And I think they nudged it across the line. So I'm definitely thankful for those guys and how they were able to do that. Had a good year in 2005. I think I had like 100 and something innings and like a 2.5 or a 2.6, and I think I was 7-4 or something like that.
Yeah,
at that highest level in the Netherlands, which was really, really high level baseball, particularly since so many of the players are just ex-pro guys, whether they're Dutch and went to the US and came back, or maybe they're from Curacao or Aruba, played pro ball and came back, or maybe they're just from Curacao, Aruba, and moved to Holland for other reasons like work, but they played ball on the islands and now they play in Holland.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of really excellent baseball players over there on those teams. And it was interesting too, because in 2005, we had that tournament in the Czech Republic. And that was really fun. I mean, coming off the season in the Netherlands, we're getting on a plane, flying to these different countries, It was very exciting, especially when you don't have a ton of extra cash, right? I mean, you're doing okay, but it's not, but the excitement of going to the tournaments is really fun. So I remember that very clearly. And I remember thinking, geez, we got Lance Painter as our pitching coach. I mean, the guy had like 12 big league seasons or something like that. And when he's kind of leading you through 12, 14 days of baseball, like multiple starts, what to do, how to handle yourself. Wow, what a great influence he was in terms of, how to go about things and some of the advice he gave on pitch sequencing and also how to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And how that fun translates to success. And some of the stories he had for us about his major league time and some of the different things he saw, what led to success. And it was really fun to have him around. But all the coaching staff we had there in 2005 was excellent. And I'll say this, I remember the Sweden game because one of my fellow Pomona Pitzer alum guys, Sam Whitehead, right? He wound up finishing the game. I had gone out there and thrown 8. We're up 4-1. And Pags is like, you're done. I'm like, you got to let me go. He's like, you're done. I'm like, come on, let me get out there. He's like, all right, I'll tell you what, short leash. Anybody gets on and you're done. But other than that, you can go finish this thing. I'm like, all right, yes, I'm going to do it. What do I do? First guy walked him. I was like, oh. But you know what? Sam came in and was 1, 2, 3 after that and didn't give up anything. And so that was like a sage hand victory there, which was pretty great. Sam Whitehead. I had another Pomona pitcher sage hand teammate as well. Mike Rennery was on the team for a couple different tournaments, including that one as well. So there's an interesting Pomona pitcher. Quite a few different people from one college team playing on this Great Britain national team altogether.
Yeah, that's cool. You were one of the top starting pitchers in that 2005 tournament as well, weren't you?
Well, I don't know about that. I just know that against Sweden, I did pretty well. I didn't give up much. And then against Greece, I pitched well and didn't give up much. But I came out of the game with an injury. That's why I kind of always have like kind of a weird feeling about that. I finished my pitch and the guy hit a line drive right back up the middle. This guy was playing professionally at the time. Yeah. And it hit right off my right ankle. Like right as my right ankle landed and hit the ground, this ball just like smashed it. And I was like on the ground, like I was in extreme pain. And that kind of messed me up. The whole rest of the Dutch season, I wasn't even the same. Like I went back up there. They were like, dude, you lost like 10 miles an hour on your fastball. The season was almost over at that point.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter as much. But that definitely was a tough one in terms of that particular, the way I came out of that second game. But 2005, yeah, it was a good run. And it was really a good group of players and teammates as well and coaches. And it was just a really, really fun group. And I think that one of the things we were able to do, now not so much that tournament, but the next tournament in 2007, right, is that I think we were able to really hit above our weight. Yeah, getting Usty and Nikias in there, I mean, like straight up AAA, big league caliber ball players, that's always a boost. I mean, those two guys are right in the middle of a AAA season. And so, that was spectacular to have them added on. In addition, I think that's the first time we had Essery as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was a great new addition to have on the team. I know I think Sprague might have been there before, maybe not. I'm not sure if Sprague had been there before or not, but we had some new additions. I know Darren was still there, Darren Heath. He had been there in 2003 and he was back in 2007. Darren, I'll tell you, Aiden, that guy, Aiden McQuarriana is one of my all-time favorite people out there. I was really, really like Aiden. We were roommates in 2005. And then I was with him in 2006 at the airport near to so just to put it in perspective, how awesome the coaches were in terms of PAGs and things they were doing. He had us over to his house We had a barbecue at his house. And then we played against a men's league team that he organized for us as like a tryout workout session kind of deal. And it was just spectacular. Anyway, we're leaving that, and I'm sitting with him at the airport, and he gets the phone call that he just got signed by the Padres.
Nice.
And that was pretty awesome. I was like, dude, congratulations. That is just so awesome. He wound up playing for Otto in 2009, the year after my last season in Otto, which was 2008. And it's kind of interesting how that all pieces together too, because that 2008 team, we had to play in this relegation tournament where if you finish last place, you have to play the first place team from the lower level. And this team, Eurostars, had some pretty good players. Most of them had top level experience, and they kind of banded together to try and grab a spot. So they ran away with the league down below, and we weren't that great that season. Game 1, we won 2-1 in 18 innings, and I pitched 17 out of the 18 innings.
18 innings?
Yeah.
Oof.
And I went 17 innings.
How's your arm not falling off?
I don't know. At the time, the pitching coach for the team and manager was this guy, Bart Volkerijk. And I don't know if that name rings any bells, but Bart used to hold all the Dutch pitching records before Rob Quartermans broke them. Robbie was another teammate of mine on Otto in 2006. So Bart was like the Dutch pitching guy in terms of durability, strikeouts, wins, all that. He was the guy. And so he's the manager. And so after about the 12th, he's like, Smitty, look we're in unknown territory. I have no idea what to do. I've got about as much experience as anybody with extra innings. I've done it a ton. I've never gone this far. You just got to tell me if you're okay. If you say you're okay, I'm going to believe you. We're going to keep rolling. So every inning, I'd come in there and try and do some shtick with the team. So like one inning, I grabbed all the bats and like threw them all along the bench. I'm like, come on, guys, it's 1-1 forever, right? It was just like, come on, wake these bats up. You know, the next inning, I'm going around passing out coffee. I'm like, look, I ordered like 12 coffees. I'm like, everybody needs a coffee. I'm trying whatever I can do to try and get some run. None of it worked, right? I come out of the game. What happens? We score a run. Someone else comes in, closes it out. We win 2-1. So that was pretty fun. And then the next day we won, so we're up 2-0 in the series. 1 week later, I threw a complete game. We lost 5-4, 5-3, and then we lost game 4. So now we got to do a game 5. So I throw game 5 and we win. I throw a complete game. We win 3-1, and we stayed in the head class. And so because Otto stayed in the head class, Aiden had a team to go to in a way. And I always felt like really great about that, in the sense that I really wanted Otto to stick around as a team, because they gave me a chance to play in Holland for many years. And I didn't want them to go down, because I was worried if they went down, that would be kind of like the end of it. Now, they wound up going down. They haven't come back. But there is another team in The Hague called Storks, where one of my old teammates, Urian Cox, plays. Coxie's over there with the Storks, and a couple of my old teammates are over there. And Storks is a field that's right by the beach, like right on the beach in The Hague. So anyway, but yeah, that and it was cold too. So there's nothing like being cold and throwing all the innings. But you know, at the end of the day, I really liked a lot of those players. That 2008 team, the Leon brothers, right? Like Dimitri Leon and Sergi Leon, really liked those guys. How about this? Dimitri Leon's been the table tennis champion of Curacao for like the last 10 years in a row.
Really?
So he was a former shortstop of mine at Otto. And now if you looked up Dimitri Leon table tennis Curacao, all the championships, all the pictures of him with these big trophies, he was always into it. I knew he was good. And how about this? He plays that lefty. Even though he throws righty and hits righty, he plays table tennis with his left hand.
How interesting.
So anyway, but that 2008 team was fun. But the 2007 European Championships was also, I got to say, one of the highlights of a lot of our careers, because It was pretty big time. Spain had spent a ton of money bringing in all these Venezuelan guys. Some of the guys that I knew over there told me they're making like 3,500, 4,000 euros for the tournament.
Wow.
Each guy. And there's like 25 guys, right? 30 guys. They spent a lot of dough on this, right? Because they've got the home field. And so opening night, there's no other games except Spain and Great Britain. And they were expected to kind of thump us. And that's not what happened. And we kind of got into a slugfest with them. I was not slated to pitch that day. I was slated to start a couple days later against France.
Yeah.
I had gotten this weird bug in Munich where we had been during a warm-up tournament and was really sick on the bus ride from Munich to Barcelona, to the point that I actually went to the emergency room with one of the coaches, and it was bad. I mean, I lost a bunch of weight, just couldn't hold anything down. It was bad. They gave me some medication, this and that, kind of feeling out of it. Get around the 6th or 7th inning, Pags comes up to me and he's just like, Smitty, I got a feeling I'm going to need you to lock this up for me. You got this? You got this, right? You're going to go close this thing out? It's like, absolutely, Pags. I'm going to put on my nails right now. So I threw the spikes on and I'm like, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. But sure enough, we were able to get out of it, and we did win. And it was something that was very exciting in that particular game.
Yeah.
Because all the other teams were there, right? All the other national teams were also there because there were no other games, and there had been an opening ceremonies right then, and everybody stayed. So not only was it like 4,000 or 5,000 people from just the fans, but all the other national team players that I knew from the Netherlands and guys from Italy and from France and all this other stuff. But it was pretty fun to be that team to knock them off. And to wind up getting all the way to the point where we played in the championship game against the Netherlands was just so exciting. Really, it was exciting. And it was a bummer, the way I came out of that Germany game, it was a bummer that we didn't wind up winning that game. But at the same time, you win some, you lose some. But that Netherlands game, they had some great players. I mean, Roger Bernardina was really good at that time. I mean, he's still really good. I think he's still playing ball somewhere. He wound up going on to the big leagues for several years there. He hit a pretty big bomb. Remember that one? And they had a good pitching staff, right? I mean, Bergman really shut us down. Markwell came in and shut us down. I mean, all their top guys that I knew from Holland came in and just kind of shut us down and did what they normally do. And that can happen sometimes, but boy, and I tell you, another good highlight from that 2007 tournament is the France game, because, leading up into that tournament, right, the selection process in terms of who was in and who was out and who's going to go there was a team that was in Munich, and then there was a team in Barcelona, and I think there were some people that didn't make that trip, or that there was a cutoff at some point. And I want to say that Malhudis didn't make the cutoff for some reason in terms of the coaching staff's decision, but that he got on again. Like someone got hurt and he's back in. You know what it was? It was what's his name? The big righty kid from Harvard broke his hamate bone. I can't remember him right now off the top of my head, but I can see it. I can see him clearly. Big hitter, big righty hitter, broke his hamate bone like in the middle of the tournament. This little bone in your wrist, and so he's out. I want to say Tom something.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, Hudis comes in, and not only does he play an excellent right field, he winds up scoring, hitting an RBI. That's ultimately the RBI that puts us ahead to win that game. I think I gave up 2 runs over 6, and we were up when I came out, and then Sprague shut the door. That's what I want to say happened there. And Hudis had the go-ahead RBI. So to see him go from like not on the team to like getting it done when it mattered, and we had been through a lot together in terms of being same kind of age. and kind of being at a lot of these tournaments together. I mean, some of these guys, we played in a lot of tournaments together, like Brad, right? Was my roommate for a lot of tournaments. So anyway, but that 2007 year was a big highlight because we hadn't really gotten that close to winning. And the fact that we wound up finishing second was really great. And something that was just a big highlight for everybody. I mean, especially after it was all over and we're able to really reflect on that. So yeah, and then 2008, I went back to the Netherlands. I will say one thing about the Netherlands in 2006, a comment I really want to make. I had started out the season playing independent baseball in New Jersey in the Can-Am League for the Sussex Skyhawks, and I got released. As I'm driving back across the country to California from New Jersey, I'm driving through Akron, Ohio, which is where my old manager, Jimmy Summers, was from. Jimmy Summers, the manager from my team in the Netherlands.
Okay.
And if you've read through Josh's book, you would recognize Jimmy's a pretty big character in this, particularly when it comes to Croatian baseball. But anyway, I called Jimmy up, and sure enough, he's in Ohio on a break. Sometimes in Holland, they have these like month-long breaks, and he would come home. He's like, dude, I'm in Akron. Just drive to my house right now. So I drove over. As I'm driving home from getting released, I'm kind of down in the dumps. He's like, Smitty, just come over and play with us for the summer. It's all good. You were on the team last year as a member of the club. You didn't need to be there by June 1st. It's all good. You're in. You want to do it? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know what? Let's do it. After I got back across the country, I had a pitching lesson with my former pitching coach, this guy, Robert Moore, who went by the name of Big Money, right? So Robert Moore, but he called him Big Money, had pitched in the big leagues for one season, but he had pitched 14 years minor league baseball, 6 years of AAA baseball, and knew how to teach people how to throw hard. And he lived in the South Bay area where I had been living of Los Angeles. I had met him on the street one day, and he turns out, had pitched for Otto for 2 seasons in 1994 and 1995. And then I pitched for Otto in 2005. So 10 years apart, Big Money and myself had been a main starter at Otto. So it was a really cool connection that we made. So I took a lesson from him, and he showed me a little trick about how to move my hands and what to do with my hands once I broke my hands that I had never tried before. And all of a sudden, I was throwing a lot harder than I had ever thrown. And so I got to Holland, they put me on the gun, and I was in the 90s for the first time ever. Wow. I'd never been in the 90s. And so Jimmy's like, hell yeah, you're the new closer, baby. So get right on in there. So I closed out 2 games, didn't give up any runs. I remember one of the games was really kind of tight, but we got it done. And I'll tell you, that 2006 Otto team with Akira Akamoto, Rob Quartermans, Robin Van Dornsbeek, Urian Cox, and me, that 5 right there was as good a group of pitchers as I've ever been around. If you were to look up some of the Rob Quarterman numbers, they're kind of Bugs Bunny-esque in the sense that he's got like 10 or 12 years in a row with an ERA below 1 as a starting pitcher in the highest level of the Dutch League. And you're like, what? He's got some years of an ERA of like 0.2 as a starter. So anyway, he was my teammate on that season, and it was really fun to hang out with him, as well as Percy Isenia and Harvey Monty and all of those guys. There was a really, really fun group of guys, and we all hung out at the apartment that I shared with Akira and James. But the reason I want to bring up that season also is because the Dutch League, after I had pitched a couple times, ruled me an ineligible player and said that the paperwork that the club had submitted was wrong. And not only was I not allowed to play anymore for the season, but they were going to take away 8 points, the equivalent of 2 wins from our total that we'd already had.
Oh, wow.
And our team protested and said, why? He's a member of the club and he played here last year. That means he can go and come back whenever they want. And they said, oh, no. That only applies to Dutch people, not foreigners. And they're like, well, where's that written? They're like, oh, we're changing the rule now. We just changed it. And they're like, really, you can't do that. We're going to court. And they're like, go ahead. They go to the courts. The courts are like, yeah, we can't rule on this in time. Like, we can't get you guys on the docket until like November, and the playoffs start in like 3 weeks. And so I got kicked out of the league for the rest of the season for nothing. And you know what's the worst part about that is that my grandmother was from the Netherlands. And she left when she was 13 to get away from what was coming.
Yeah.
And she never went back. Her family broke up, never got back together. She had to give up her Dutch citizenship when she married my grandpa, who was an American. At the time, you weren't allowed to keep it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're telling me I'm a foreigner, you know, it's extra harsh.
Yeah.
You've got like all these documents that prove that you're like, you guys want to come to my family's house that is in The Hague and in Delft and in Rotterdam and in Amsterdam and in Harlem, and they're all there, and certainly Dutch, you know. So that was a real sting. And I will say that if you've never had someone single you out and punish you because of your birth background or something that you don't have control of, it is not good. Yeah. So that was a tough one. So I was pretty upset by it. And you know, the thing is, I stuck around because my team's like, you didn't do anything wrong. I didn't really have a place to go back home. I was expecting to keep playing baseball. So they kept paying me and I stuck around. And I was coaching the kids and my velocity got higher. At one point, it got up to 93 when I was just on the side. Meanwhile, our team kind of messed us up by losing the points, and we got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. And there were a bunch of innings that I probably would have had that didn't go well. And the toughest part also was like at one point, some of the other teammates were like saying that I did something. They're like, "What'd you do?" And then some of the other teammates spoke up. They're like, "Dude, he doesn't know about his friggin' paperwork. What are you talking about, dude? They just called him up and said, you want to play?" And he said, yes. He doesn't know about his paperwork. But that was tough too. The teammates are like, why did you make us lose these points? And this and that. And really what it was the other owners in the league who were controlling the board just made it up and they could get away with it. Now, I will say I took revenge on them slightly a year later, right? So after, well, not so much a year later. It was right then. So after that, I basically was a free agent in Holland, throwing 90 plus with no contract for next year. And so I basically went to all the owners and said, hey, you kind of screwed me, man, but whatever, let's just move forward. Do you want to sign me for next year? I'll come throw a bullpen for you, and then you take me out to dinner. And so that's what I did. I threw bullpens and went out to dinner with different people. And then I wound up going back with Otto. You know, I got a bunch of nice dinners out in very nice restaurants in Holland, which some of the nice restaurants in Holland are very nice, very fancy, particularly out in the Bussum area.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well played.
So
well
anyway,
played.
but it was a bit of a tough one there. So anyway, that was that. And then I stopped playing for like trying to go back to different, after the 2008 season, my shoulder really started kind of hurting. I went back to Holland again in 2008. And it really started to hurt. I got through the season, but that last 17 inning thing and all that was just like too much. Like, I'm done. And so I got a job selling solar, and I've been selling solar since then. First couple of years in like a residential commercial style deal. And the last 11 years, I've been working for a solar developer that we do solar projects for school districts. So we put up all the money to design, build, and maintain the systems, and then we sell the electricity back to the districts for less than they're going to pay now. So they get savings. And then we wind up getting our money back over the long term by selling power. And so I've been doing that for the last 11 years, and then continuing to play in this men's league team that we have around here. That started in 2011, but 2009 was a pretty fun one. I'll say that. That was a really fun one. I mean, that was the World Cup and all the World Cup. That was pretty exciting. I will say it was very disappointing when we didn't get to go to Taiwan.
Yeah, well, there seems to be a bit of a funding issue around the World Cup as well. It's like fun, like 2008 with the like I said, them.
Yeah, the Taiwan thing. I mean, I will say in 2005, we were sitting around the lobby in Prague with Team France, right? And it's who's going to get baseball for the Olympics. in 2012, right? That was the question. And when they chose London, we were all pumped. We're like, yes, because the whole team gets to go to the Olympics, right? If I can just hang on until I'm 31, I'm going to the Olympics, man. This is great. And then like 3 days later, they're like, yeah, baseball's out of the Olympics. They're like, oh. And then we're like, okay, we can still qualify for Beijing, guys. We can still do it. Don't let it go. And so we did that. We put ourselves in the position to play for a spot. And then again, and so you put that together, right, with this whole thing that happened in Holland. And then all of a sudden you get a chance to go to the Olympics and they just don't want to fund you. But then you look at some of these, pomp and circumstance that the government's willing to pay for, and you're kind of like, come on, that wasn't that much. Come on. So anyway, at the end of the day, it's all good. But certainly I think that team we had a really good chance to do it.
Yeah.
I felt confident in our team. We had a really strong team and we were playing way above what we're supposed to do. And when you're doing that, then you can do something, especially in a couple of weeks, because you never know.
Yeah.
But that 2009 tournament was exciting. I will say one thing that was interesting. Aroldis Chapman was like the cutout in the lobby. It says like World Cup 2009. It's got the big word. I'm like, didn't he just defect from the same hotel like a month ago? He did. He had just defected from that hotel, and they still had the sign up like Aroldis Chapman's like all over town. That was kind of an interesting thing there.
Curious.
But I will say we started out in Croatia, and I pitched horribly in the first game. Aiden picked me up and really pitched great. And because he pitched great and the rest of the team played well the rest of the tournament, we wound up sliding into that second round on some kind of run scored thing. And I remember we're all around a laptop eating dinner. Team Japan is in there, right? And they're like super polite and like everyone's in the same thing. Like they've got actual clothes to wear when they're not in uniform, where we didn't have all that. And like everybody seemed like they were probably playing at some kind of high level of some kind of baseball, right? And we're just crowded around this computer, just fired up about Venezuela. If Venezuela can just beat Germany by this many runs, right, then we're going to the next round. And that was very exciting when that wound up happening. So we got to go play Cuba the next night, and we got to play against guys like Cespedes and Abreu and some of these guys that, you see are just major talents in the big leagues. And then you saw them live and direct. You see why. I remember Cespedes hit one off one of our lefties. It was like a lefty changeup that he got out in front of, but he stayed back enough to just absolutely really put one out.
Yeah.
And that 2009 tournament was interesting because that second round sort of felt like a bonus, although the one game where I pitched really, really well against Puerto Rico, I also lost the game for the team despite my pitching well by making a throwing error from the mound. I don't know if that shows up in any of the books or any of the videos or anything, but we were up and I ground ball back to me and I threw it over Aiden's head, and that run wound up being the one run that got us, which was definitely disappointing. But I do remember our catcher coming up to me and just saying, Smitty, I think the game plan here is let's just go below hitting speed and then come inside every so often and just kind of frustrate everybody. And that worked really well in terms of lots of changeups, lots of balls that were really slow, and then getting ahead and then coming in. It was definitely a interesting game. Eduardo Perez, who I see on ESPN here and there, was the manager of that Puerto Rico team. And after we do the handshake in line, he comes up to me. He's like, dude, give me a hug. He's like, you did it. You just pitched a complete game against a big league lineup and you made it through. You probably should have won if you had made that throw. I'm like, I know. He even admitted it. And I was like, man, did Eduardo Perez just say all these nice things about me? That's pretty cool. I just got a regular job at this point. I'm selling solar. I'm working out on the side. And I took all my vacation for this before I had a family and all that, right? So that's when that was more of a possibility. So And then Venezuela again. I pitched again against Venezuela. But I remember just seeing all those high quality players, and the tournament was really really interesting and fun to be around. Yeah. And then 2010 would have been in Stuttgart. And I remember that tournament very fondly in the sense that I pitched well against Croatia in my first game. And I think I went 6 or 7 innings and really didn't give up much. Trying to think of where else I pitched. I don't think I pitched that well against Czech Republic at the end. But I was already pretty sore because I had just thrown recently, and we didn't really have a whole lot of folks left by that point in time. But I liked being in Germany, and Stuttgart was a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. I mean, that was the first time I had met, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other teammates that I will say back to that other earlier group. I mean, Ian Young's hitting at these tournaments. I mean, it was amazing. He would go out there, he'd have some kind of injury. You'd never know it. He'd go out there and smash the heck out of the ball all the time. Him and Brad, they were so steady in their production throughout all the years, despite whatever kind of physical ailments you might see. It was very impressive. I want to put that out there. And then 2010, some of the new faces that came along. I remember Hornestad was there for the first time. Aaron Hornestad, excellent ball player.
Yeah.
Excellent ball player. Probably the best shortstop I played with, period. And he brought a lot of energy and a lot of spark. And I remember that so because we didn't do that well in 2010, we had to go to Israel in 2011.
Yes.
And that was wild. Now, Brad, Marcelino, myself, and Aaron Hornestad were in the same room 3. And that became like our rallying cry during the games. When anything would happen, we'd flash the 3. Room 3, baby, room 3. And it worked. It really worked. Those two guys, I think both of them hit well above 400 for the tournament. I pitched really well. And it was just like, man, that room right there, all that right there in that one room, there's a lot of excitement going on. So I remember being in Israel and thinking it was exciting to be there. We played, first game was against Lithuania. I pitched that game. We won pretty easily. I will say our game against Georgia was a little scary. I mean, at one point we almost lost. They had bases loaded with 1 out and we were only up by 1. And then there's a ground ball. Sam Whitehead induces a ground ball to Hornestad, who flips it to our second baseman, Chris. He's an Australian guy. Can't remember his last name right now. This Georgian guy, he might as well have been a linebacker in the NFL. He didn't slide at all. He went head first with his shoulder and just trucked our second baseman, who basically throws like this and then just like a quarterback in football, just gets laid out. Well, the umpire immediately calls a double play, even though he made the throw anyway and got him out anyway, right? Well, our shortstop's pretty pissed, and he gets up in the guy's face and is like, what the F just was that? So we all start running on the field, and then all of these Georgian guys start running on the field. And you're like, they're screaming in Georgian. I don't know what they're saying. It definitely was an intense moment. Nothing happened. I mean, everybody stayed back, but it was definitely an intense flashpoint. We wound up having to get on the same bus with them. and then because that knocked them out of the tournament, they stayed up late, like singing songs and doing whatever else they were doing and trying to we were staying in the same kind of agricultural school dorm kind of area over there with the other teams. And then we beat Israel the next day. And then we played Israel for the title the following day, where we lost in the first game to Shlomo. And then he tried to pitch the second game. I was like, Shlomo, come on, dude. You're awesome and everything, but both ends of the doubleheader. It was like 108 degrees outside.
Ouch.
So anyway, I pitched that game, went well. We 8 2/3, I believe. I think I came out of the game, I was falling apart. And then MJ, Michael Johnson, came in. He hit a guy and then got the next guy out. Roller, just horny, comes in, makes a throw to first. I can see I'm down the line. And that was very exciting to win that B-pool tournament. Only Great Britain tournament I won during my whole time. And that was really fun. A lot of great people there as well. I'm trying to think of all the different characters that we had there. I know we had Spencer was there. Spencer Kreisberg was there. I think that was his first tournament.
Yeah.
I see Spencer here and there in my men's league. He lives in the same kind of area as I do, maybe an hour and a half apart.
That's cool.
Yep. And that Israel tournament, I mean, that was intense. That last game against Israel was intense, and definitely you could feel the relief of everybody. In particular, too, the coach of the other team, right? Pat Doyle for the Israel team had been on our coach for the 2010 team. And it was kind of particularly satisfying, even though I like Pat, I think he's a great guy. It was particularly satisfying to beat him in that situation.
Yeah.
And also there was a Pomona Pitzer guy, Guy Stevens for Team Israel, that earlier on I was like, where's the Pomona Pitzer guy? I was like, hey, just so you know, I know you're not ready for this. You gotta let the veterans handle it, man. It was joking around because he's a really nice guy. I see him around too, so it was just a joke. But he had pitched well for them also, and I think he's kind of started a whole thing at Pomona Pitzer where he's a pretty high up guy in one of these MLB organizations. And I think there's like 15 now Pomona Pitzer guys that are in MLB organizations. But anyway, and then 2012 was my last set of tournaments. That was the European Championships in the Netherlands, followed by the World Baseball Classic qualification tournament in Germany.
Yeah.
And, last tournaments there. So, I think that it was very exciting to have the opportunity to be a part of that World Baseball Classic. I mean, I got to pitch in a game, didn't give up any runs, finished up a game. We had a win at the time. I think that was the only win we had. And I've still got that thing right here. Right at the time, that was the only win. We didn't win against the other games.
Wow.
And so that's the one that closed out the win for that particular game against Czech Republic. That's all I got in there, but there were some great players. I mean, we got all these professional guys coming in for that tournament, like Mike Roth. I mean, that guy, what a legend in terms of College World Series statistics and performance. The guy was just in a class of his own. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff or familiar with that, but
no.
Guy won back-to-back College World Series and had an ERA of under 1, being a starter that was going deep into games. So wow. He really, really was fun to have him around on the team, as well as some other guys. There were some guys that were from the Bahamas, like Antoine Richardson was on the team. I remember him. He's now a coach up in the big leagues, I think for the Giants, I want to say. He was on the team, and there was an influx of talent, but unfortunately we weren't able to go to the next level in that 2012 tournament. And that was it. That was it for the GB perspective, in terms of my participation in the program. I think that I kept pitching, didn't stop pitching. So since 2012, I've probably got 1,000 innings in this league that I'm in here. I will say, though, given that I've got a 9-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, and my vacation time is not infinite, I think that 2012 really was the last year of availability in terms of, even if the team decided you're good enough, which I'm not saying they have, right? But I would not be able to do it anyway because of just the time commitment it takes, because it's not just a tournament. You've got to go to the pre-tournament. You've got to get over the jet lag. You've got to really get yourself prepared going into it. And that's extremely challenging to do.
Yeah.
So that was the last one for me, but still really, I talked to Spencer about it. I know he's been to a bunch since then. And so I kind of check in with him to see how the team's going. Also, other guys that I see around the men's league. See the two brothers that live in LA. Let's see. Sam. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. Sam Wiley and Zach Wiley. So I see them here and there as well. But I would say, I will also say this, you know, the coaching staffs that we had, particularly with PAGs, you know, the level of professionalism and the organization and the way they treated us and the way they treated the tournaments was just so spectacular. I mean, they were just so great in terms of providing that leadership and really being professional about it in a way that we all really appreciated and we really noticed. And they put a lot of guys in, they got a lot of guys connected into European baseball to get work. And I know Tom and Pags are still they have like a business together now, I believe, in terms of that old world baseball where you can, if you're American, you want to go play baseball in Europe, you can sign up with them and they'll take you on like a 10-day trip to Germany and go play baseball every other day. Go have fun. And so anyway, that's the kind of guys those people are in terms of Greenberg was in there, you know, you even had Mike Smith in there throwing BP, just throwing darts at everybody. And I think that all in all, I see the Great Britain program and think back on it with just a really fond set of memories. And I really wish the program the best. And it seems like things are going well. I will say, going back to the 2012 tournament, I mean, I think we had a great group of players and coaches. I think, you know, some of the decisions that were made leading up into that tournament, you know, in terms of personnel and who's in and who's out, certainly, you know, looking back on it, wish that maybe I'd spoken up and said something different to voice my opinion, maybe a little bit louder, given my stature as a veteran on the team. But, you know, that's all water under the bridge now. And I would just say that certainly very excited for the future of the program. My kids are eligible for Great Britain passports because I was born in England. I can actually pass that through to them. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. My son's 9 and he's playing in his little league around here. My daughter's 6 and she plays softball and we're having a lot of fun with that. They play soccer and other sports too. And you know, it's really fun having those kids. I've been coaching my son's little league team for the last couple of seasons. Yeah. And that's been really fun to do.
That's cool. And we also have the GB national team for women as well. It's available. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, big time. So you could have the whole family back together.
You never know.
National program.
You never know. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Indeed. We are unfortunately running out of time. And I'm really grateful that you shared these fantastic stories with us. I've just got a few more before we bounce. Who would make your Mount Rushmore of British baseball people?
Boy, that's really tough to say. But in terms of people that, you know, I was particularly close with and played a lot of baseball with, I mean, certainly you got to put, you know, Brad Marcelino. We were roommates for a long time. Aiden McQuarrie-Ennis, just such an awesome guy and someone that I was also had been roommates with for one tournament. I mean, Youngie was such an awesome guy and was always there. Ian Young, in terms of what he did. Hudis, in terms of just the energy and the attitude, as well as his baseball abilities. But he had a particular way of, you know, getting the team together. And I have to say that in terms of, you know, the coaches, I mean, you've got to put them up there too, because in terms of the way they were able to create an environment where we were able to succeed. And so that's all of them, like all the coaches. And It's tough to do a Mount Rushmore, folks, because I don't want to leave folks out that I really like. Because I have to say, I don't have any negative thoughts about anybody I ever played with. I mean, everybody was really great, and I thought the environment on the Great Britain team was particularly cohesive in terms of people having a good, strong connection and doing the right thing with one another. You don't always see that on teams. It doesn't always go that way. And I always felt like no matter who was there, we had that. You know, I know part of that, I know Brad and I always sat in the very back of the bus in that back row. And I think there was some orchestrating of some of the things that were going on there. But I mean, some of these Australian guys that would come over, like I remember when I was younger, Simon Isons, he helped me get into that Australian league. He's an all-time wins leader in the ABL. And the guy was a really strong pitcher. He helped me out tremendously. And so there's a lot of people that I met through the Britain program that connected me with work, connected me with instruction, and helped me grow as a baseball player. So I'm really thankful to have been a part of the program and look forward to seeing, you know, future success.
That's brilliant. And last one for me. Did you ever have a specific jersey number, and was there an interesting story behind why you had that number?
You know, I was a 30 or 34. I always liked Nolan Ryan, but when I was in high school, that was kind of one of the numbers that was available. It wasn't like I had to have it, so it was sort of like I'd pick it if I could get it, and if not, I'd just kind of take whatever.
That's cool.
I wasn't too into the numbers myself.
No, that's cool. And that's it. That's all from me. It's tradition on the show to give the last word over to the guest. So, Alex, anything you want to say before we bounce? Any parting advice or anything that we may not have covered?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess I would just say in parting, it really has been great to be able to talk about some of these old things that happened and some of these stories and I kind of think back in my own mind to the days of British baseball. And I definitely am looking forward to seeing more about what happens with the program and how it evolves and how people keep moving through it. And who knows, maybe there'll be another Los Angeles based workout at some point where I can host people or do something kind of like what other people did in the past to get me involved. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I just feel really thankful to be able to represent Great Britain. It is a big honor. I mean, there's not a lot of people that get to represent a nation. And I feel like when we took the field and we played every single game that I was a part of and I saw as a baseball player, we played it first class with passion, with energy, but we didn't cross the line to get dirty. We played tough, but we also knew how to deal with things the right way. And I definitely think that we always thought that there might be kids, others watching us play and thinking that we need to handle ourselves as if that's what's going on. I know that was really important to all the teams that I was on in terms of representing Great Britain is a big honor. You're not just representing a club team, or you're representing a nation. And there's a lot of people that care a lot about that. And you've got to always take that in mind. And I think we did that and really represented folks to the best of our ability. But that was always in our heads. I do want people to know that.
Brilliant. Alex, thank you very much for your time.
All right, Matt. Hope it goes well. Have a good day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.